The mission NASA just named for Astronauts 2 was supposed to be the most important spaceflight in 50 years. Not a test, not a rehearsal, the real thing. The first time American boots would touch the surface of the moon since December 1972, when the last Apollo astronaut climbed back into his capsule and humanity quietly stopped going. That is not what Artemis 3 is anymore. In February 2026, NASA restructured the mission. No landing, no lunar surface, no moment where a boot touches a regolith and the world holds its breath. The moon will be visible from their windows. They will not be going there. And at the announcement ceremony, those 4 people were told they carry the fire of exploration from generations past and the dreams of millions who will be cheering them on. That language was written for a landing. It was given to a crew who won't make one. So let me walk you through what Artemis 3 actually is, why nobody can tell you which rocket will even show up for it, and why the mission NASA is calling its next giant leap is, right now, the most expensive open question in the history of human spaceflight. The original sequence had clean logic. Artemis 1 flew uncrewed and tested the hardware. Artemis 2 carried astronauts around the moon and brought them home. Artemis 3 would land, a ladder, each rung depending on the one below. The problem is that the ladder developed gaps before anyone reached the top. The lunar landers were not ready, not close enough to stake 4 lives on. So in February 2026 came the restructure. Hold the landing. Replace it with 2 weeks of orbital systems testing close enough to home that a rescue remains at least theoretically possible. Prove everything works before anyone attempts any of it near the moon. These astronauts will spend roughly 2 weeks in low Earth orbit instead, testing docking systems, validating life support and communications, running rendezvous procedures, and trying on next-generation spacesuits in actual space conditions for the first time. That call was the right one. It was also the kind of call that tells you exactly how much pressure this program is under. NASA has not confirmed which lander Artemis 3 will use. Not because the decision is weeks away, because the answer is genuinely not settled. The official position, stated without apparent embarrassment, is that NASA will fly whichever lander happens to be ready when the mission's moment arrives. That is not a plan. That is what a plan looks like after reality has finished with it. 2 companies hold the contracts. SpaceX with a lunar variant of Starship, Blue Origin with a vehicle called Blue Moon. The architecture was built around having both available, a safety net sewn into the mission design. If one slipped, the other would carry it. 2 legs under the same table. Both legs are currently broken. Within the last 12 months, both companies have had expensive test failures. SpaceX's Starship testing program suffered its own explosive test failure, one that set back the lunar development timeline and left the specific variant NASA needs still unproven. Then on May 28, 2026, Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket exploded during a ground test at Launch Complex 36 in Cape Canaveral. Not a launch, a fire. The routine kind where the rocket is bolted to the pad, the engines light, and everything is held down to confirm the system's work. The blast was visible across central Florida. People miles away felt their houses shake. The launch pad took structural damage with no confirmed repair timeline. Blue Moon rides to orbit on New Glenn. No working New Glenn means no Blue Moon. It is that direct. And Starship carries its own unresolved complication. The lunar variant has never flown the mission it would actually be asked to perform. It is too heavy to reach the moon on a single tank of fuel, so it launches to orbit nearly empty, and a series of separate tanker flights refuel it in space before it goes anywhere near the lunar surface. That refueling sequence has never been done at this scale, not once, by anyone. 2 safety nets, both have holes, at the same moment. We have been in similar territory before, and the history is instructive. In September 2016, a SpaceX Falcon 9 exploded on a Cape Canaveral pad during a fueling test. Same category of failure. SpaceX identified the cause and returned to flight in 4 months. The launch pad itself took nearly 15 months to repair. Over a year just to rebuild the concrete and steel. A single explosion tore it apart. Here's the difference that matters now. When SpaceX lost that pad, it had others. It kept flying while it rebuilt. Blue Origin has one operational New Glenn pad. No backup. Plans for a second exist on paper. You cannot launch a rocket from a blueprint. If the damage at Launch Complex 36 runs as deep as the footage from the morning after suggested, the timeline for Blue Origin's return is not measured in weeks. On paper, Artemis 3 is still targeting 2027. What officials acknowledge when pressed is this: the 10-month cadence NASA needs between Artemis missions is being held together by two commercial partners, both behind schedule and both carrying fresh explosion damage on their development timelines. Artemis 4, the actual moon landing, depends entirely on what Artemis 3 proves. If Artemis 3 slips, Artemis 4 slips, and the 2028 landing goal NASA has been defending publicly starts to mean something nobody is ready to say in a press conference. Delay, possibly significant. In a race, another country is currently running on schedule. China has stated openly its intention to land astronauts on the moon before 2030. It has been hitting its intermediate milestones with a consistency that the people who follow this closely have stopped calling surprising. Every month Artemis 3 moves is a month of runway handed to someone else in a competition the United States spent 60 years assuming it would never need to have. Then there are the four people standing in the middle of all of it. Randy Bresnik, commanding. Frank Rubio is bringing deep ISS experience. Luca Parmitano, the ESA representative from Italy, was selected ahead of the German candidate, as many had expected. And Andre Douglas, who is about to leave Earth for the first time after watching someone else do it without him. Parmitano's selection carries a specific history worth knowing. When NASA restructured Artemis 3 from a landing into a precision orbital test mission, ESA reconsidered which astronaut the revised architecture actually needed. The answer was a test pilot. Parmitano fit that profile ahead of the originally expected German candidate, and one specific moment from his past made the case impossible to argue against. Early in his career, during a spacewalk outside the International Space Station, his helmet began filling with water. A coolant malfunction. In the vacuum of space, that is not a slow inconvenience. That is a countdown. Water filled his helmet until it covered his ears, then his eyes, then his nose. He found his way back to the airlock by feeling the safety cable under his hands because he could no longer see, hear, or breathe properly. ESA cited that exact moment when explaining his selection. The composure. The fact that he did not panic when the equipment keeping him alive started trying to drown him. Douglas took a different road. Coast Guard veteran, search and rescue in open water, maritime salvage, drug interdiction, then a doctorate in systems engineering, then the astronaut corps, then backup and closeout crew for Artemis 2, where he helped 3 other people suit up, sealed the hatch behind them, and watched them fly toward the moon's vicinity while he stayed on the ground. This will be his first time leaving Earth. Both were selected for a mission to the moon's surface. They are training for docking tests in low Earth orbit. At the ceremony, they were told they carry the fire of exploration from generations past and the dreams of millions cheering them on. Language is built for the moment a human being steps onto another world, given to a crew who will spend their mission in orbit, running system checks for the people who come after them. That gap between what the ceremony described and what the mission actually is isn't cosmetic. It is the distance between what this program needs to feel like and what the hardware can currently deliver. Artemis 3 is still a genuine mission. The docking tests matter. The life support validation matters. The suit's work matters. Nothing that follows can happen safely without what this flight proves. Think of it as the rehearsal where you find out what would have gone wrong on the night that actually counted. But here is where it stands. 2 landers with fresh explosion damage on their timelines. 1 pad with no confirmed return date. a schedule under pressure from both ends, a crew trained for a landing that became a test, and a competitor moving steadily toward the same finish line. The hardware can be rebuilt. Both companies have recovered from worse. Money, engineers, and time are solvable problems. Time itself is not. It took a February restructure, 2 troubled rockets, and a ceremony full of words written for a different mission to turn the most anticipated American spaceflight in 50 years into something nobody has a clean name for yet. Not a moon landing. Not a moon landing. Something suspended between what was promised and what the hardware can actually do right now. The 4 astronauts will still fly. They will still do real work in a genuinely hostile environment. They will still be the reason the next mission can happen safely. They just won't be the ones who get to land. And if you want to know when someone will, the honest answer, the one NASA cannot say in a press conference, is that nobody knows yet. The ladder was supposed to reach the moon. Right now, nobody can tell you how many rungs are missing.